I am Mohammad Hanifa, Associate Professor, Department of Physics, E-Content Development Center, Majlis Arts and Science College, Olancheri. Today we discuss a very important phenomenon of light, that is polarization. Actually, this part comes in Physical Optics and Modern Optics of BSc Physics program in 5th semester. We know interference and diffraction confirms the wave nature of light, but still a question remains whether light is a transverse wave or a longitudinal wave, because both waves can produce interference. So, polarization confirms that light is an electromagnetic wave. Initially, the transverse nature of light was initially postulated by Thomas Young in the year 1817. Now, we have in this session I would like to discuss what is polarization, what is the difference between polarized light and non-polarized light, what are the applications of polarization, and what are the different methods of polarization. We know polarization has very important application in the field of engineering, industry, and even in medical science. We are very much familiar to LCDs. LCD, you know, it is liquid crystal displays. We know it is widely used in televisions, wristwatches, calculators. So, all these cases there is a phenomenon of polarization. Polarization is also used in ophthalmology, dermatology. So, it is having wide applications in different fields of science and engineering. Light is an electromagnetic wave. In an electromagnetic wave, the electric and magnetic fields oscillate perpendicular to the direction of propagation of light, and they are also mutually perpendicular to each other. Whenever we explain the phenomenon or the effects of light, generally we will be preferring the electric field vibrations, even though it is having magnetic field vibrations. This is because, one, the magnitude of electric field vector is very much larger comparing to the magnitude of magnetic field vector. It is about 100 million times larger in magnitude. And similarly, a second reason, the effect of electric field on our eye is very much larger than that of magnetic field. So, because of these reasons, whenever we explain the phenomenon or effects of light, we will be considering the electric field variations generally. So, in this section also, during the discussion of polarization, I also prefer to explain it based on the electric field variations. Now, what is an ordinary light? We can generally say that ordinary light is a non-polarized light or unpolarized light. So, what does it mean? For that, we should know actually what is a beam of light. We know light is emitted when atoms at higher energy level comes to lower energy level. Atoms in the excited energy level, when they comes to lower energy level, they will be emitting a wave packet or wave train. This wave train or wave packet is having only a very short duration, because the transition from higher energy level to lower energy level will take place within a short interval of about 10 to the power minus 8 second, or we can say 10 nanosecond. So, because of this, each wave trains emitted by an atom is having a very short duration of about 10 to the power minus 8 second. We know in a source of light, billions and billions of atoms will be undergoing transition from higher energy level to lower energy level. So, because of that, A beam of light will be containing a large number of such wave trains emitted by different atoms. So, and one more thing, the electric field vector of each wave train will be perpendicular to the direction of propagation, and also it is this direction of the electric field will be randomly oriented in different directions. For example, suppose a wave is transmitted along propagating along the z direction, then definitely the electric field vector will be in the xy plane. Imagine one wave emitted by a particular atom has an electric field in the x direction, then definitely other waves emitted by some other wave atoms may not be having electric field in the same direction. It can be in the y direction, or it can be in some other directions. So, because of that, if you look to a beam of light, it will be having electric field vibrations in all directions. So, you can see it in the diagram. There, imagine an electromagnetic beam of light is coming out. There you can see the arrows represents the electric field vibrations of different wave trains. So, that means, so this is a non-polarized light. So, we can say a light having electric field vector E and a magnetic field vector B, of course, oscillating in all directions perpendicular to the direction of propagation of light is called an unpolarized light. So, this is the nature of our ordinary light. Then how can we represent an unpolarized light? Now, imagine a beam of light. Suppose it is transmitting along the z direction, then we know the electric field vector will be in the xy plane. Now, since electric field is a vector, it can be splitted into rectangular components. You know that any vector can be splitted into rectangular components. So, here the electric field vectors of all waves can be splitted or resolved into x and y directions. So, we can represent a light as shown in the diagram. See that it is propagated in the z direction. There arrows are there. Suppose that direction is the x direction, and there dots are also there. So, the arrows show oscillation in x direction, or we can say that is vertical oscillation, and dots show oscillations, electric field oscillations in y direction, horizontal direction. So, a non-polarized light can be represented as shown in the figure. Now, what is a plane polarized light and what is polarization? We learned even in the lower classes, you learned in your 12th standard that there are certain materials. When light is passed through such materials, it permits only certain electric field vibrations to pass through it. For example, we know tourmaline crystals, quartz, polaroids, etc. It will permit only certain electric field vibrations to pass through it. We say that it will permit only the electric field vibrations parallel to its axis, a particular axis. So, if a non-polarized light is passed through such materials, the emerging light from this material will be having vibrations restricted to a particular plane only. For example, suppose light is propagated along the z direction, then definitely we know it will be having electric field vibrations in x and y directions. So, if such a beam light is passed through a tourmaline crystal or a quartz prism or a polaroid, then the emerging light will be having vibrations only in a particular direction or in a particular plane. Such a wave is known as, or such light is known as plane polarized light, because the vibrations are restricted to a single plane. They are also known as linearly polarized light, because the vibrations are only in a particular direction. So, we can say therefore, the phenomenon of confining the electric field vibrations of light waves in a specific direction perpendicular to the direction of propagation of light is called polarization. Such a light is called plane polarized light or linearly polarized light. Now, there is one important term related to polarization, that is plane of polarization. In a plane polarized light, all the vibrations will be restricted or confined to a single plane. This plane is known as plane of vibration, plane of polarization. In some books, it is also referred as plane of vibration. So, we can say the plane containing the direction of vibration of the electric vector and the direction of propagation of light is called the plane of polarization. See the diagram given. Light from a source of light is passed through a polarizing filter. You can see from the diagram, the light from the source is unpolarized, so it is having vibrations in all directions. When it passes through the polarizing filter, the vibrations are restricted to a single plane. That means in the diagram you can see the vibrations are in the vertical plane, because that is a direction of the axis of the polarizing filter. Now, there is another term what we call partially polarized light. So, we discussed plane polarized light as well as non-polarized light. In a non-polarized light, we said that the electric field vibrations will be randomly oriented. So, if light is propagated along the z direction, there will be electric field vibrations in the xy plane in all directions, and the magnitude of electric field vector will be equal in all directions perpendicular to the direction of propagation of light. But sometimes certain light beams, the electric field vibration in certain particular direction may be slightly larger or lesser in magnitude than the electric field vector of other directions. Such a light is called partially polarized light. So, we can say in the case of an unpolarized light, if the electric field vector in some plane is either more or less than that in the perpendicular plane, then it is said to be partially polarized. Now, regarding polarization, we have to note these points also. One, already I explained, natural light, our ordinary light is unpolarized. And second important thing, if an unpolarized light is converted into a plane polarized light, then its intensity becomes half of the initial value. For example, suppose an unpolarized light of intensity I is passed through a tourmaline crystal. Imagine the incident intensity is I. Then the emergent light is plane polarized. Definitely, the intensity of the emergent light will be nearly half that of the incident light. For example, if the incident intensity is I, then the intensity of the emergent light, which is plane polarized, is only I divided by 2. Another point, two plane polarized lights with different planes of polarization will not produce interference, but there can be interference if they have same plane of polarization. Interference occurs if they have same plane of polarization. So, whenever two plane polarized light having different planes of polarization, for example, one is having plane of polarization along the x direction and the other is having plane of polarization along the y direction, then there cannot be an interference. But if both are having plane of polarization in the x direction or both are having plane of polarization in some other direction, when they superpose, it can produce interference. And the fourth point, that is, generally we may also have a doubt. By looking to a light, we are unable to identify whether it is plane polarized or non-polarized or partially polarized. The reason is our eye cannot distinguish between polarized and non-polarized lights. Now, how can we produce plane polarized lights? There are different methods to produce plane polarized lights. One, by reflection. Two, it can be by refraction or by scattering or by selective absorption, that is also known as dichroism, and another effect by double refraction. Reflection, refraction and scattering is very much familiar for us, but selective absorption and double refraction is a new phenomenon, new effect. Anyhow, that will be discussing in this chapter. Now, the first case, polarization by reflection. It was in the 18th century, E. L. Malus noticed that when light is reflected from a surface, it gets polarized. The extent of polarization of light, that much how much it has been polarized, depends on two factors. One, on the angle of incidence, and the second one, the nature of the material of the reflecting surface. So, depending on the material as well as depending on the angle of incidence, the extent of polarization changes in the reflected beam. And it was found that if we change the angle of incidence on a material, the polarization with the amount of polarization in the reflected beam also changes, and at a particular angle of incidence, the reflected beam will be completely plane polarized. This angle is what we call polarizing angle, and it is also known as Brewster's angle. So, we can say the angle of incidence at which the reflected light becomes completely plane polarized is called polarizing angle or Brewster's angle. Now, another factor related to this also you learn in your 12th class, Brewster's law. Sir David Brewster conducted a lot of experiments related to the polarization by reflection. He found that when the reflected beam is having maximum polarization, then the reflected ray and the refracted ray is having an angle 90 degree between each other. That means, the reflected and the refracted beams are perpendicular to each other. So, if the reflected and refracted rays are perpendicular to each other, then it can be shown that the tangent of the angle of polarization is equal to the refractive index of the material of the reflecting surface, or we can say the tangent of polarizing angle is equal to the refractive index of the reflective medium when light is incident on the medium from air. This is called Brewster's law. So, we can write tan I p is equal to mu, where I p is the angle of polarization and mu is the refractive index of the material of the prism. Now, this can be proved mathematically. See the diagram. A non-polarized ray is incident from air onto a material having refractive index mu at an angle of incidence equal to I p, the polarizing angle. Then you can see the incident ray is having vibrations both perpendicular to the surface as well as horizontal to the surface. The perpendicular directions are represented by arrows and the horizontal directions are represented by dots. Since the angle of incidence is equal to I p, the polarizing angle, the reflected ray, you can see that it is having only vibrations in a particular direction. It is represented by dots. So, that means the reflected beam is completely plane polarized. But you see the refracted beam, it is having both arrows and dots. What does it mean? It is not completely plane polarized, it is actually partially plane polarized. But since the angle of incidence is equal to the polarizing angle, the angle between the reflected ray and the refracted ray is equal to 90 degree. So, therefore, from the diagram it is very clear that the angle of refraction R is equal to 90 minus I p, where I p is the polarizing angle, that is the angle of incidence. We know from Snell's law, sin I by sin r is equal to the refractive index of the second medium divided by the refractive index of the first medium. So, here angle of incidence I is equal to I p. Therefore, we can write sin I p divided by sin r is equal to mu divided by 1, because the refractive index of air is equal to 1. So, we can write sin I p divided by sin r is equal to mu, and from the diagram it is very clear that r is equal to 90 minus I p. So, we can write mu is equal to sin I p divided by sin 90 minus I p. You know sin 90 minus I p is equal to cos I p. So, mu is equal to sin I p divided by cos I p, that is equal to tan I p. So, we get tan I p is equal to mu. This is a proof for Brewster's law. So, I repeat, the tangent of polarizing angle, that is tan I p, is equal to the refractive index of the reflective medium. When light is incident on the medium from air at, definitely we know it is at the polarizing angle. Now, certain applications of Brewster's law. We know, 1, this method is used to determine the refractive index of an opaque material. We know if it is an opaque material, the Snell's law cannot be applied, because Snell's law gives the sin of the angle of incidence divided by sin of the angle of refraction. If the material is an opaque one, there is no question of refraction through it. So, in such cases, we can determine the refractive index of the material by finding out the polarizing angle. And second application, in gas lasers that you will study in your laser chapter, the two glass windows at the two ends of the laser tubes are arranged at Brewster's angle to the axis of the laser tube. Due to this arrangement, there is no reflection loss. Another application utilizes the Brewster's angle for transmitting light beam into or out of an optical fiber without reflection losses. You know, optical fiber we are using mainly for communication. So, in such cases, to the optical fiber some optical signal has to be transmitted into the optical fiber. So, whenever we are putting light signal into an optical fiber, it should be done without having much energy loss. So, there also we are utilizing the Brewster's angle. Another application, that is actually the reverse of the first application what we discussed. Brewster's law helps us in calculating the polarizing angle necessary for total polarization of reflected light for any material if its refractive index is known. That means, if we know the refractive index of a material, we can calculate what will be the polarizing angle. So, if we make a ray to incident on it at that angle, the reflected ray will be completely plane polarized. And remember, there is an important note that Brewster's law is not applicable for metallic surfaces. Remember, in the case of metallic surfaces, this law is not applicable. Now, we have a very important law regarding the intensity of emerging light. So, that is law of Malus. We have seen that when a non-polarized light is passed through a Polaroid, the emerging light will be plane polarized. Then it is having intensity half of the initial value. But if a plane polarized light is already plane polarized light is passed through a Polaroid, what will be the emerging intensity? So, that is given by law of Malus. So, according to this law, the emerging intensity is equal to I 0 cos squared theta, where I 0 is the intensity of the incident plane polarized light and theta is the angle between plane of polarization and the transmission axis of the Polaroid. So, that is given here. Let a plane polarized light of intensity I 0 be incident on a Polaroid, with the plane of vibration at angle theta to the transmission axis of the Polaroid, then the transmitted intensity I is equal to I0 cos squared theta. This is called law of Malus. Suppose we are having a non-polarized light. Initially it is passed through a quartz prism or tourmaline crystal or a Polaroid, so we know it will be plane polarized. So we are using two Polaroids. So if a non-polarized light is passed through the first Polaroid, the light becomes plane polarized. Then that first Polaroid is called polarizer. If this plane polarized light is again incident on another Polaroid, then the intensity of light emerging from this Polaroid will be in accordance with the law of Malus. So law of Malus, remember, the intensity of the emerging light from the second Polaroid is equal to I0 cos squared theta, where I0 is the intensity of the plane polarized light. A non-polarized light of intensity I0 is incident on the polarizer. Then it becomes plane polarized and the intensity becomes I0 by 2. Then that plane polarized light is incident on another Polaroid we call analyzer, and the emergent intensity is I0 cos squared theta divided by 2, where theta is the angle between the crystallographic axis of the polarizer and analyzer. So that only the topic for today. Now a few questions regarding the portions which we discussed today. These are actually the questions which came in different years university question paper. First one, a non-polarized light of intensity I is incident on a polarizer. The polarizer and the analyzer are oriented with their planes normal to the incident light, and their transmission axes are making an angle of 45 degree with each other. What fraction of incident non-polarized light is transmitted? Second question, if the critical angle of glass air boundary is 30 degree, calculate the polarizing angle for glass. And third one, when sunlight is incident on a surface at a glancing angle of 40 degree, remember here it is not the angle of incidence, it is glancing angle, then the reflected light is completely plane polarized. Calculate the refractive index of the material of the surface. And fourth question, the critical angle of incidence for a total internal reflection in the case of water is 48 degree. What is its polarization angle? Polarization angle means polarizing angle IP. And what is the angle of refraction corresponding to the polarization angle? So after viewing this video, try to do these questions. Thank you.